The weight of grief hung heavy in the air as I stood before my brother-in-law's casket. James had been more than just family. He treated me like his own brother from the day I married his sister. Now he was gone, taken from us far too suddenly. Beautiful flowers surrounded him, their sweet fragrance mixing with the solemn atmosphere. Family photographs were carefully arranged in a casket, capturing moments of joy now tinged with sorrow. As my eyes moved across the collection of memories, something caught my attention. One photograph stood out, defaced with unmistakable malice. My heart began to race as realization struck. The police had it all wrong. James hadn't taken his own life. Someone had murdered him. His words from just weeks ago echoed in my mind. If anything happens to me, Tom. I couldn't stand still any longer. Without a word to the mourners around me, I turned and ran from the funeral home. My feet carried me toward the office building where we spent countless hours together, where James had mentored me, supported me, and showed me what true leadership meant. Yes, that had to be it. The evidence I needed would be there. My legs burned as I sprinted through the streets, my dress shoes clicking against the pavement. When I finally reached the office, what I found would change everything. My name's Tom Wilson, and until recently, I was just another face in the corporate crowd, the kind of person you might pass in the hallway without a second glance, who blends into the background of meetings, whose name you might struggle to remember at the company Christmas party. I joined Thompson Industries on a rainy Tuesday in September 5 years ago. The orientation session was held in a stairwell conference room on the 14th floor, and that's where I first saw her. Michelle from HR was giving a presentation on company culture, but what caught my attention wasn't her polished slides or professional demeanor. It was how she stopped mid-sentence to help an elderly janitor who had dropped his keys outside the conference room door. "Sorry, everyone," she said with a warm smile as she returned. "Where were we? Ah, yes, company values. Actually, that was a perfect example of our first core value. We're all family here." Little did I know how literally I would come to experience that particular value. During the lunch break, I found myself standing awkwardly by the coffee machine, trying to decode the complicated settings that would look more like a spacecraft than a beverage dispenser. "Try the French roast," a voice behind me suggested. "It's everyone's favorite." I turned to find Michelle holding out a paper cup. "The machine can be a bit temperamental with new people," she added with a laugh that somehow made the whole room feel brighter. It took me 3 months to discover Michelle was the CEO's daughter, and even then, it was through office gossip rather than any hint from her behavior. The revelation came during a coffee break when Lisa from accounting nudged me and whispered, "You know who she is, right? That's Michelle Thompson, as in Thompson Industries Thompson." I nearly choked on my coffee. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. The way senior executives always seemed to light up when she entered a room. How she navigated the building with the ease of someone who'd grown up there. But Michelle never acted like corporate royalty. Instead, she was the person who organized birthday collections for the cleaning staff, kept a stash of emergency chocolate in her desk for anyone having a rough day, who stayed late to help interns practice their presentation. "Growing up, Dad always taught us that true respect is earned, not inherited," she told me later, when I finally worked up the courage to ask her about it. We were sharing a sandwich on a bench outside the office, watching pigeons squabble over crumbs. "James got it right away. Kevin? Well, Kevin saw things differently, but I just wanted to help people be happy at work. Is that weird?" Looking at her then, autumn sunlight catching the hint of gold in her brown eyes, I realized I was falling in love with not just Michelle, but everything she stood for. Kindness, humility, the genuine desire to make the world a little better each day. "Tom, you look like you could use this," she said one particularly stressful morning, placing a steaming cup of coffee on my desk. That simple act of kindness led to a lunch dates, which turned into dinner dates, and eventually, a wedding that had the whole office buzzing. My colleagues never missed a chance to joke about my strategic marriage into the Thompson family. "Better start practicing your CEO pose, Tom," they tease, mimicking serious expressions behind imaginary desks. I'd always laugh it off. The idea of me becoming CEO? That was about as likely as winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. Besides, the Thompson family already had 2 exceptional candidates in line for succession. James, the eldest, was everything you wanted in a leader. He'd worked his way up through every department, learning the business from the ground up. Kevin, the youngest, was brilliant too, though in a different way. While James built relationships, Kevin built profit margins. Michelle fell right between them in age, but she never showed interest in running the company. Her passion lay in helping people, which made her perfect for the role in HR. "I already have my dream job," she'd tell me with a laugh whenever anyone brought up succession. "I get to make this company a better place for everyone who works here." Working in the same department as James gave me a front row seat to what real leadership looked like. While some whispered about nepotism behind closed doors, I saw the truth every day. James earned every accolade through dedication and genuine care for his team. One particularly challenging Thursday morning, I found myself staring at a spreadsheet that seemed to mock me of its errors. Numbers that should have aligned perfectly were slightly off, and with only an hour until the client presentation, panic was setting in. A gentle tap on my shoulder made me jump.
Tom, everything okay? You look like you're about to declare war on that monitor,
James said, his voice carrying its usual mix of concern and gentle humor. I turned to him, my tie feeling suddenly too tight. James, well, this is my first solo project for the Martinez account. Something's not adding up. Literally, I've triple-checked everything, but... He leaned over my shoulder, his presence immediately calming.
Mind if I take a look?
Please, I practically begged, sliding my chair aside. James studied the screen for a moment, then pointed to a column.
Ah, I see what happened. You're using the old formula template, aren't you?
Yes? Wait, is that wrong? A warm chuckle escaped him.
Only because IT updated the system last week. I made the exact same mistake when I started here. Actually, mine was worse. I sent out an entire quarterly report with every calculation off by a decimal point.
My jaw dropped. You? But you're James Thompson!
And before I was James Thompson, the department head, I was James Thompson, the nervous rookie who spilled coffee in the CEO's shoes. Who, by the way, happened to be my father, which made it even more mortifying.
He grabbed the spare chair and sat down.
Here, let me show you the new formula structure. We can fix this in 15 minutes.
True to his word, we had the spreadsheet corrected with time to spare. As he stood to leave, James paused.
You know what made me a better worker, Tom? Making mistakes. They teach you more than success ever could. Just make sure you learn from them.
Those moments of mentorship weren't rare with James. He made time for everyone, from the newest intern to the most senior manager. It wasn't just about fixing problems, it was about building people up, helping them grow. The announcement of the legacy project came on a crisp autumn morning. The office buzzed with speculation as Mr. Thompson himself called all hands meeting in the main conference room. Such direct involvement from the CEO was rare enough to catch everyone's attention. The presentation screen displayed a single phrase, Project Phoenix. Mr. Thompson stood at the front of the packed room, his silver hair catching the morning light.
Ladies and gentlemen,
he began, his deep voice commanding immediate silence.
What I'm about to share will shape the future of Thompson Industries for generations to come.
He outlined an ambitious plan to revolutionize our core business model, adapting to emerging technologies while maintaining the human touch that had always set us apart. The project will require thousands of work hours, unprecedented coordination between departments, and flawless execution. Then came the words that made every heart in the room skip a beat.
Upon successful completion of Project Phoenix, I intend to recommend James Thompson as my successor to the board of directors.
The room erupted in hushed whispers. I glanced at James, who sat perfectly still, his expression a mixture of surprise and determination. From my angle, I could also see Kevin in the back of the room, his knuckles white as he gripped his tablet. In the weeks that followed, our department transformed into a hub of constant activity. James insisted we maintain our regular workload while taking on Project Phoenix responsibilities, but we all voluntarily stayed late, ordered dinner to the office, and poured our hearts into every task. One evening, as the sunset painted the office in orange and gold, I knocked on James' door with my latest report. The dark circles under his eyes testified to the long hours he'd been putting in.
Come in, Tom,
he called out, somehow managing to sound energetic despite the late hour. I placed the report on his desk. Here's the market analysis you requested. I included some additional demographic breakdowns that might be helpful. James flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning quickly but thoroughly. A smile spread across his tired face.
This is excellent work, Tom. You have a gift for presenting complex data in an accessible way.
I learned from the best, I replied, thinking of all the times he'd helped me refine my reporting style.
No.
He shook his head.
You developed your own style. Look at this visualization here. I never thought of presenting the data this way. It's brilliant.
The praise made me shuffle my feet awkwardly. It's nothing special.
Tom.
James leaned forward, his expression serious.
You know why I believe this project will succeed? Not because of me, but because of people like you. People who don't just do their jobs, but put their whole hearts into making things better.
The news came on a peaceful Sunday afternoon. Michelle and I had been enjoying a rare quiet moment together, the kind where you can almost forget the weight of responsibilities waiting for you on Monday morning. The sharp buzz of Michelle's phone shattered our tranquility. She answered with her usual cheerful hello, but something changed as she listened. Her voice grew softer, uncertain. I watched as the color drained from her face, her hand trembling as it held the phone. The device slipped from her fingers, clattering against the coffee table. Michelle? I moved closer, concern tightening my chest. Sweetheart, what's wrong? She stared straight ahead, tears beginning to roll down her cheeks. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I took her hands in mine. They felt ice cold. Please, I whispered. Talk to me. What happened? When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. James is dead. The words hit me like a physical blow. Surely I had misheard. James couldn't be. He was just at the office yesterday, talking about future projects, smiling, alive. What? I managed to croak out. How? Michelle's body began to shake with silent sobs. I pulled her close, my mind racing to process this impossible information. Through her tears, she explained what little she knew. James had been found behind the company building, bleeding and unresponsive. Though emergency services had arrived quickly, it was too late. The police were calling it suicide. But James? Suicide? Man who just last week was excitedly sharing his vision for the company's future? Who had spent hours mentoring young employees and building teams? It made no sense. The drive to the Thompson family home felt like moving through a nightmare. Michelle sat silent beside me, staring out the window as familiar streets passed by. The police had cordoned off the area behind the office building where James had been found, but we could see the flashing lights from blocks away. According to the initial police report, James had apparently jumped from the roof. A handwritten note was found in his office, citing the pressures of the upcoming succession and expressing regret for not being strong enough to handle it. The security cameras in that section of the building had been malfunctioning for maintenance, leaving a convenient blind spot in the coverage. The funeral was held 3 days later. As I stood by the casket, paying my final respects, something caught my eye among the photographs. It was a family picture from last Christmas, but James's face had been deliberately marked out with black permanent marker. The defacement was recent. The ink still had that fresh sheen to it. My blood ran cold as I remembered James' words from 2 weeks ago.
Tom, I'm giving you my computer password, just in case anything happens. It's probably nothing, but better safe than sorry.
I excused myself and raced to the office. James's computer was still at his desk, untouched since that day. My hands shook as I tapped in the password. Michelle birthday, 1985. There in a hidden folder, I found an audio file dated the day before his death. The recording captured a heated argument between James and Kevin.
You don't deserve it!
Kevin's voice crackled through the speakers.
I've worked just as hard, but you've always been Dad's favorite. Always the perfect son, always doing everything right.
Kevin, this isn't about favorites.
James replied calmly.
The board will make the decision based on what's best for the company.
Then step aside. Recommend me instead.
You know I can't do that. You're not ready.
Not ready?
Kevin's voice rose sharply.
I've outperformed every target, brought in more new clients than anyone else. What else do I need to prove?
Leadership isn't just about numbers, Kevin. It's about people.
Spare me your leadership lectures. If you won't step aside, I'll have to remove you myself.
The recording ended there. I immediately called the police, my heart pounding. As I waited, Mr. Johnson, our longtime janitor, knocked on the office door.
Mr. Wilson,
he said, his voice trembling.
I need to tell you something about Mr. James.
Mr. Johnson had been working late that night, emptying trash bins on the upper floors. He witnessed Kevin confronting James on the roof, saw the push that sent James over the edge. Kevin had threatened Mr. Johnson's job and his family's safety if he ever spoke up. The truth finally came out. Kevin broke down during questioning, especially after reading a letter James had left in his desk.
Dear Kevin, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I know you're frustrated, angry, feeling overlooked. But remember what Dad always taught us. A true leader lifts others up instead of pushing them down. You have so much talent, so much potential. You don't need to force your way to the top. The right opportunities will come when you're ready. While I'm still here, I hope we can work together to make Thompson Industries even stronger. If I'm not, please, be kind to people. That's what makes a real leader. Your brother always, James.
The weeks following Kevin's arrest were the hardest. Reporters camped outside the office, their cameras flashing every time someone entered or left the building. Everyone walked around like ghosts, speaking in whispers, struggling to process how our corporate family had fractured so violently. Michelle took it particularly hard. I kept thinking about all the times we were together as kids, she told me one night, clutching an old family photo album. Kevin was always so protective of me. How could he? How could he do this to James? The Thompson Industries board called an emergency meeting to address the succession crisis. I expected to be asked to step down from my position. After all, I was just a son-in-law who married in. Instead, Mr. Thompson surprised everyone.
Tom,
he said, his voice carrying the weight of recent grief.
James spoke to me about you often.
He saw something in you that reminded him of himself when he was younger. Not the polished executive everyone knew, the young man who cared more about helping others than climbing the corporate ladder.
He pushed a folder across the table. Inside was a letter from James, dated just the week before his death.
Dear Dad, I know we talked about succession planning extensively. There's something I need to say. While I'm honored to be considered for CEO, We need to think about the long-term future of Thompson Industries. I've been watching Tom Wilson closely. He may not know it, but he has every quality we need in a future leader. He's humble enough to admit his mistakes, passionate about helping others grow, and most importantly, he understands that business success means nothing if it comes at the cost of our humanity. Michelle chose well, better than she knows. If anything happens to me, please consider Tom for a leadership role. Not because he's family now, but because he embodies everything Thompson Industries stands for. Your loving son, James.
The letter shook me to my core. James had seen potential in me that I never saw in myself. He'd been preparing me all along, in his own quiet way. The transition wasn't easy. Some longtime employees resented having the son-in-law suddenly promoted to director. Others worried I lacked the experience necessary for such a crucial role. But I remember James's approach. Earn trust through actions, not words. I started small. Instead of making sweeping changes, I focused on understanding each team member's strengths and challenges. Like James, I made time to mentor newer employees, sharing the lessons he had taught me. Sarah from accounting still talks about the day I spent 3 hours helping her prepare for her first major presentation. "But you're a director now," she had protested. "Surely you have more important things to do." James Thompson once spent an entire afternoon teaching me how to format spreadsheets, I told her. Good leadership isn't about your title. It's about helping others succeed. The real test came 6 months into my new role. Our biggest client was threatening to leave, unsatisfied with recent service levels. The accounting was panicking, preparing detailed reports and statistics to defend our performance. I remember how James handled similar situations. "Put the reports away," I told them. "We're going to visit the client in person." It was exactly what James would have done. We spent a full day with the client, not talking about numbers or contracts, but listening to their concerns, understanding their challenges, and brainstorming solutions together. By the end of the day, not only had we saved the account, but we also strengthened the relationship. That evening, as I was leaving the client's office, their CEO pulled me aside. "You remind me of James," he said quietly. "He always made us feel like partners, not just clients." 2 years have passed since that devastating day. The company has grown in ways none of us expected, shaped by the lessons James left behind. His legacy lives on not just in our business success, but in the culture of kindness and mentorship he fostered. Michelle returned to work 6 months ago, stronger than ever. She's transformed the HR department, implementing programs to support employee mental health and create safer spaces for people to voice concerns. "James always said that a company is only as strong as its people," she told me. Now I truly understand what he meant. The most surprising change came from Mr. Thompson himself. After Kevin's sentencing, he seemed to age overnight, but instead of retreating into bitterness, he channeled his grief into action. He established the James Thompson Memorial Foundation, providing scholarships and mentorship opportunities to young professionals who embody James's value of leadership through service. Last week, we launched Project Phoenix 2, the continuation of James's original version. During the kickoff meeting, I found myself standing at the same podium where Mr. Thompson had once announced James as his successor. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. "James once told me that leadership isn't about being at the top of the mountain," I began, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. "It's about helping others climb with you. Today, we're not just launching a business initiative, we're honoring a legacy of leadership that puts people first." The applause that followed wasn't just polite, it was genuine, heartfelt. In that moment, I could almost feel James's presence, smiling his approval. The boardroom still holds echoes of James. His favorite chair remains empty during meetings, not out of superstition, but respect. The company has found its rhythm again, a new harmony built on the foundation he left us. This morning, as I prepared for another board meeting, I noticed something that made me pause. A young analyst was helping a new hire with a spreadsheet, using the same patient teaching methods James once used with me. The cycle continues, each person lifting others as they climb. Michelle and I have a daughter now. We named her Jamie, and sometimes when she smiles, I see a flash of her uncle's kindness in her eyes. She'll grow up knowing the true story of James Thompson, not just how he died, but how he lived, how he turned a corporate culture into a family, how he saw the best in people and helped them see it in themselves. The photo on my desk has been joined by others, team celebrations, charity events, moments that show the company James envisioned coming to life, but his picture remains in the center, a daily reminder of the legacy we're building. As I walk through the office each morning, I see his influence everywhere. In the mentoring sessions happening over coffee, in the way teams collaborate rather than compete, in the smiles and genuine connections between colleagues, we've created something rare in the corporate world, a place where success is measured not just in profits, but in the growth and happiness of our people. I straighten my tie and pick up my briefcase, ready for another day of carrying forward the lessons James taught us. The morning sun streams through the window, catching the edge of his photograph. "I think you'd be proud, James," I whisper, touching the frame gently. "Not just of me, but of all of us." We're building the company you've always dreamed of. One person, one act of kindness at a time. And somewhere, I know, James is smiling.